Hey, what's going on there, folks? Welcome back here to a Wednesday. It is the Earthmaster here, May 8th, 2024, about 10:56 a.m. here, California time. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D globe shows a 2.8 around the Mediterranean. Looks like it's just outside the Turkey area. A little bit of uptick there overnight, nothing major. Did see some larger movement overnight around the Vanuatu area. I did see a 6.1. We'll cover that here in just a little bit. Right now, still seeing some flaring going on. Quite a bit of flaring here, along with an M flare. Looks like it's starting to try to peak up again around the X flare category. Not for sure if it's going to make it up there or not, but goodness, we've definitely seen a lot of elevated space weather activity here recently. Look at the last 7 days or so. This is quite impressive, seeing this line of activity sharply rise up here, where we're almost consistently sizzling with M flares and X flares. It's quite crazy to see here. I don't think we're done with that yet. As noted, we got another M flare. Okay, it looks like it's just peaking out there around an M7.9. That's going to be the latest flare coming in right now from the Sunspot, and I believe it's from, looks like it's going to be this region right here, the source of last night's long duration X flare. This thing has been rapidly developing and growing in size and complexity. Check out the magnetic core. This is going to be 3664. This is from yesterday. Or last night. Let's check out the most recent imagery here. Goodness. I don't know how much more complex this thing can get, but this is looking quite dangerous in terms of stronger flare potential. You guys see all that? A lot of intermixing here of the polarity of magnetic fields and what happens when you have the positive and negative and whatnot with an electrical current, so to speak. Well, you get those sparks going on here, and this thing is set up looking like it wants to produce a very large X flare. Again, that's 3664. The one of the source of the long duration X flare last night, and the current M flare that we're seeing, a near X flare right now. The other active region is up here off the northwestern quadrant, just about ready to get out of sight, out of mind here. That's been the source of numerous M flares and numerous X flares itself while it was over here in position. The only, concerning thing is that this one is more in an Earth-directed view, so anything that does pop off from here would be geo-effective. In fact, they put out the latest solar wind prediction here from last night's X-flare long-duration event, and you can see it did shoot off a decent CME Earth-directed. Now, looking at this here, we could see it looks like it's a fairly fast-arriving one as well. Speed up around the 700 range or so, maybe just below that. Either way, it's going to have a quick little shot of some plasma as far as that CME goes. It's going to give us a little chances of auroras here, roughly around the, looks like the 11th time period here, where we could see a G2 class storm come in. From the arrival of this CME that was produced last night. That's from that long duration X flare. All right, so let's go back here to the solar ham site. There we go. Kind of reloaded itself. Cool. G1 hasn't updated that one, but it looks like around the 11th time period we'll get a decent chance of seeing some auroras down here. Maybe into the mid-latitude states. We'll have to see. Either way, we'll watch that as we get a little bit closer, for sure, because that's a decent CME headed our way. Looks like it's quick moving and got a lot of plasma there, a lot of density built up in it. All right, so overall threat right now. Look at all these flares in the last 2 days. These are M2 plus. I can only imagine how many flares have popped off here in total. We would have to literally count all of these, but goodness, I mean, The majority of yesterday was in the M flare category, with at least 2 X flares. There's that 1 X flare. This was from that far side, well, almost the far side sunspot on the northwestern quadrant. This right here, this X flare, the long duration event, see how it's kind of thicker instead of an impulsive event like this? This tells me right there that it did produce a CME last night, and obviously the models are confirming that today. So that was an X flare, almost a near X flare again this morning or late last night, and almost another X flare just now. So, you know, things are getting quite active out here on the sun. The SFI is increasing as well, about 204. No major auroras in the forecast in the near term. But again, remember the May 10th, May 11th time period. We'll check back on that as we get a little bit closer. But got to keep an eye on 3664. That harbors a beta gamma delta structure, magnetic structure here that harbors some potential for some very strong flares. And again, it doesn't look like it's weakening whatsoever. So I expect here, while it's in Earth position, to possibly see one of the more stronger flares this solar cycle if it continues to keep up the complexity. Now, top solar flares so far, this solar cycle 25 was back in February. You guys remember that? It just seemed like yesterday, but it's actually been a couple months now when we've seen that X6.3 class X flare from 3590. That was actually kind of off on the northeastern quadrant of the sun. And as you can see down the list, quite a few X flares in there so far. But in a solar maximum, we could easily see something much more powerful than an X6.3. Much more. We've seen it in past cycles, so we just got to have the specific dynamic sunspot, and it looks as though this one really wants to do it. So we'll keep an eye on that. I'm going to keep that as a nice screenshot here because it's actually really cool looking, and it's again, that's a giant sunspot. Goodness. All right, what else we got here on the sun? No major coronal holes, a couple little ones up on the north and south area of the sun. Just for now, this. Look at that. All right. Earthquake activity here. See what's going on. Anything major overnight? Well, we did have that 6-pointer stirring up early this morning, about 1 o'clock my time here. 6.1 coming into the Vanuatu area. Now, this area has really not seen a whole lot of movement. If we go back the last 30 days or so, it's seen a handful of smaller quakes here, but all around the rest of the plate boundary has seen fairly decent larger scale movement, with the exception of it being right here around the Port Vila area. Again, there were some very small ones, some smaller earthquakes, which is common, but most of the time we'll at least see a 6-pointer out here. And so this area looks like it is starting to catch up a little bit in terms of all the adjustment that's been taking place here around the region recently. So 6.1 early this morning. That earthquake was followed up by quite a few aftershocks here around the Vanuatu area. And of course, with this movement right here, things could progress further across the plate boundary here, where we're lacking a little bit of activity around Papua New Guinea, the general stress regions here. Once we see movement around this plate boundary where the Vanuatu area sits, we'll start to see pressure and momentum build up here across this region around Papua New Guinea. The general plate stress arrows indicate that region of interest here following today's movement. Still some activity here across Taiwan. Nothing major going on. A handful of smaller quakes down into the Philippines and the Indonesia Islands area. Australia seeing a couple 2s and 3s out there, mostly on the southern area of Australia. And nothing going on here for New Zealand for now. Doesn't look like there's a whole lot on the globe. Pretty quiet up here across the northern rim of the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate boundary. Hawaii looks like they're still rocking and rolling out here, so let's go double check, see what's going on out here. About 67 earthquakes here in the last 24 hours. You can still see that line of activity stretching out here from the crater summit region of Kilauea Volcano off to the upper east rift zone. Still a little concern on whether we're going to see a magma intrusion off to the east rift zone or not, or if it's going to be right about here. So let's go check out the latest information here from the USGS with the Kilauea Volcano in mind. All right, looks like we're good. I am going to turn this up a little bit as far as the size of it. I did manage to increase the cursor size. If you didn't notice, on this side, it is huge in terms of the size of this. So hopefully it's a little bit more visible in the updated videos and on the live stream and whatnot. So I had a couple folks saying they couldn't even see the cursor. So I hope this helps. Let me know. Latest update here was put out yesterday. Nothing yet. So we'll check out the data. And still showing that we're on the incline here. That's the inflation going on. This one's a little different compared to past inflation events over the last month, showing more of a drawn-out, consistent rise in the inflation there across the summit and the east rift zone. So, unlike these other ones here, where we're seeing a period of inflation sharply followed up by stationary or deflationary event, this one's just going up and up. So we got to watch that, because that could be a sign here of an eruption being imminent. Earthquake activity, obviously that would increase as well prior to any fissure activity opening up out here across the region. Let's check out this seismograph station here. There's a little bit less activity from yesterday, but we're still seeing some. There is the S waves, or the S waves from, I believe that's going to be the 6-pointer down there in the Vanuatu area. That's what it looks like. I don't know if that matches up with the time frame or not. I guess it does, yeah, because that'd be 1 o'clock in the morning. So that's what those wavy lines are. They show up across various seismograph stations around the globe. When you get these large earthquakes, the surface waves travel around the Earth and through the Earth. But earthquake activity here, notice only a handful in the last few hours, but we'll continue to watch it. Definitely, of concern with that continued inflation. And while we're on the topic of volcanoes, let's go check out the volcano up here in Iceland, where we're seeing a little bit of elevated earthquake activity out here around Grindavik and around the region of the crater area, where we're seeing the ongoing eruption here. Now, there's obviously some incredible land rise out here as well across the entire region of the Svartsengi area. Their wording yesterday in their most recent update from the Icelandic Met Office, let me go back here, states that it's difficult to predict the end of the chain of events that began at the end of October. So they're talking about the end scenario, but I don't think we're going to be seeing an end. I think we're going to see it progress elsewhere and turn into a longer duration event. Now, here is the little concern, but I've been saying that as well for quite a while, that we could see eruptive activity take place elsewhere aside from the region that we're currently seeing it there around the crater, right? They're stating here south of Hagafell that it could include areas of Grindavik, right? It makes sense. That's where south of Hagafell would be right here. And we did see previous fissure activity out here, right? The closest it got was one little fissure here in the northern part of town. But if you remember back in October and November, we've seen this whole area swell and then drop, right? So we know that magma can accumulate underneath this area, underneath the town itself as well. That's not fear-mongering. That's just facts and science. And there's always that concern there of seeing, a new eruption open up directly underneath the Grindavik area. We got to watch that. Key signs will be some elevated earthquake activity and, of course, the continued inflation. And right now the inflation is still quite high in that area. Let me bring up the 8-hour run times here for the region of Grindavik. I'm going to blow these up here, so hold on a second. Probably a little small on that side. Here's the runtime vertical displacement for the Grindavik area. Notice that we're still sharply rising here. There's been a couple downturns here, couple dots of those runtimes showing slight deflation, but the overall trend across the entire area is inflated. So it's an ongoing scenario, and no one knows the outcome, but I think it's best to be on guard and expect the worst, but hope for the best, right? That way we're not caught off guard. All right, California activity. What do we got here? We did have a 4-pointer out here yesterday south of the border, but it is along the plate boundary here, or just off the Imperial Fault. That was yesterday. Really haven't noticed any increasing activity up here yet across Southern California. A lot of times during these little events here in the Gulf and these strike slip zones, it adds further strain up here across the plate boundary, but we're really not seeing that yet. The rest of California here, fairly minimal. Really not seeing anything major going on. Handful of smaller quakes up there through the Cascades. Yellowstone National Park looks like a little 1.5 and a little 0.3 from last night. So let's go check out the Yellowstone overview here, see what's going on. That's going to be the earthquake activity, 1.5 and what was the other one, 0.3? Those two little earthquakes. Aside from that, nothing going on here. This movement down right here, Grant Village, some type of signal showing up there on that reading. Maybe a little bit up here as well. I'm not for sure if there's any wind events going on up there. It doesn't look like it's a broad scale wind event, but let me double check and make sure. I went way far. There we go. Looks like they got some type of switching up of the wind up there from the north. Let's see here. Wind gusts right here. It's a little windy. Maybe certain areas out there that are exposed to the elements are going to be showing some type of wind events out there. It kind of looks like geyser activity as well, maybe, but hard to say on some of these. But we'll watch. It kind of just looks like geyser activity maybe, but it's kind of weird that it would show up across the entire region. But wind, we'll watch for wind out here. Obviously, that can have an effect on many of the seismograph stations and whatnot. All right, let's see what else is going on here. Texas area. Out there in the oil field, still getting rocking and rolling out there with earthquake activity. Goodness, it never ends. Oklahoma area as well. A little bit of movement way up into northern Kansas, a little 2.5. Let's see what we got out there for... where am I going? There we go. Up in the beautiful state of Kansas, northern Kansas out there. Not for sure. It's kind of hard to tell sometimes if there's any type of... pumping operations out here or not. Not too familiar with this specific area. I don't see anything on the map. This area, let's see, U.S. hazard map here, doesn't really sit in any major hazard zone, but of course, got to remember there could be some older faults out here. And of course, if there's pumping operations, oil, fracking operations, we'll see those elevated as well with earthquake activity. Eastern portion of the country here, a little 1.6 from last night out in New Jersey. Let's see, Puerto Rico. Looks like the latest quake in this area here near St. John's area, 4.9 coming in to the subduction zone area here just to the east. This region did see, if I remember right, another earthquake here just further south here near Bridgetown, 5.1. So a little bit of adjustment going on here. It's been a little while since we've seen any larger scale activity here. The Caribbean plate gets moved around and shoved around and bullied around quite a bit. It's a little small plate here being squeezed in between the North American, the South American plate. You got forces from the Cocos Plate adding strain against it as well here on the western side. Also a little segment squeezing up from the Nazca Plate into that region as well. Again, the Caribbean Plate in the kind of like a pink salmon color here, just getting moved around, subducted and squeezed, and it gets some large earthquakes out there, so we'll have to continue to watch that region as well for some movement. Again, we've been noticing a little bit of elevated activity out here in the last couple days. The Atlantic Ocean, pretty quiet. We did see quite a bit of movement down into the South Sandwich Trench here in the last week or so, but it looks as though things have calmed down here for now in that area. And let's see, kind of skipped over Utah, and kind of been wanting to keep an eye on that because it's been swarming like crazy. Still seeing some earthquake activity out here today. That adds a total tally of, man, we're coming up on almost 100 earthquakes here in the last couple days around the Bluebell Study area. Today, the last 24 hours, about 11. Mostly some smaller quakes down there around 7 to 8, maybe even a little bit deeper, 9 kilometers deep or so underneath this area. Definitely continue to keep an eye on that. Let's double check space weather, see what's going on here. See if we got anything else stirring up. My goodness, this is just a crazy sunspot. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm back out here sometime this afternoon with an update on a larger X flare, just the way that thing is looking. And it's looking right at us, folks. Not even joking. This thing can produce a big flare and maybe some strong auroras should it pop off a decent Earth-directed CME. A strong one, that is. All right, Storm Prediction Center. Well, after today, maybe after tomorrow, things will start to calm down in the severe weather department because they've had a rough last couple weeks out here. Been pretty rough with tornadoes and large damaging hail, and these guys need a little break out there, a little time to recover. Storm Prediction Center has added a moderate risk here for some severe weather across this area with a large 10% hatched area for very strong tornadoes. That includes EF2 to EF5 tornado, which is the highest class of tornado within 25 miles of a point. So anywhere out here today, even if you're in this green area, which is a less chance for tornadoes, but still a chance for tornadoes, you guys need to be aware of what's going on around you. Take heed to weather warnings, keep your eye on the sky, and make sure you have a plan because this stuff gets pretty serious, and it sucks to see so much damage and loss of life, and got to be aware out there. Again, take your weather radio with you to work, keep it with you in the car. It's one of those days. Wind and some very large hail in there as well across this area. So heads up. Tomorrow kind of shifts off a little bit to the southeast here where there'll be another enhanced zone. Well, it is enhanced on the categorical, but they could add a further threat for tornadoes. Right now it just looks to be mainly wind and hail. And then after that, things will calm down. I was looking at the weather models here, and it looks like after tomorrow and Friday, things they switch up a little bit. High pressure moves in, and there's just general thunderstorm activity out here for a little while. These are all just thunderstorms, right? I think most people can deal with that. Just no major severe weather potential associated with that. As we head into next week or so, okay, it looks, well, really not seeing anything major. Possibly right here, we got these low pressure systems set up to where it can pull up moisture and create that those spinning supercells for tornado development. But that's way into the month of May, around the 23rd, 24th or so. We'll have to watch that. Things can change, but looks like maybe that might be another severe weather scenario there. Aside from that, folks, supposed to be about 80, well, I think about 81, 82 degrees out here in California. We got some heavy-duty wind kicking in, though. If you live out here in Northern California like I do, you'll know that when the north wind blows, goodness, it blows. And we got quite a bit of north wind blown out here due to high pressure over here and low pressure off to our east. And the pressure gradients create that very strong downsloping winds here. And we heard the wind all night. We got some gusts coming in here as we speak, and it's supposed to pick up there through the afternoon. So I'm probably going to be outside enjoying some gardening time and listening to some wind chimes and whatnot. It's going to be nice as far as temperature goes. But that wind, goodness, it's going to be a little warm, a little windy. These guys only showing about 77, but this is the ECMWF model. The HRRR model shows a more accurate reading, probably right here, of around 80 degrees or so in my area. And it's only going to get hotter here as we head towards the weekend. In fact, we're supposed to be close to 100. I knew it was coming, but we're supposed to be close to 100 close to this weekend and early next week. But we've had a nice winter. It's been nice and wet, no drought. So I really can't complain too much, right? I know the heat was going to come eventually. As far as the drought, looks like there's been some improvement out here across the eastern portions of the southern plains. I was out here in western Kansas and eastern Colorado 2 weeks ago now. And there's certain areas still very dry. Now, I know quite a few of these areas got some rain, but it does look like they need some further moisture out there to hopefully dampen that drought potential. California is looking good. Oregon as well, up in Washington. Certain areas up there a little dry. Canada has got some big-time droughts they're dealing with. But for the most part, I mean, look at this. California is just completely out. They're showing a little bit here in the Sierra Nevada. I don't know how true that is because they got a lot of snowfall these last couple years. So I'm not for sure why that's up there, but it is. Fire danger out here. Of course, we've got a dry north wind. A lot of fire potential out here into the desert southwest, it looks like. Let's check out our asteroid approaches here. I've been kind of slacking on those, but for today's time frame, let's see what we got. Anything close? It looks like it's going to be this 32 foot wide bus size asteroid coming within about 171,000 miles from us. That's going to be 276 kilometers. Not a big asteroid and not super close. Remember that one we had here a few weeks back was about 11,000 miles, very close to the Earth. That ended up missing us. But all these other ones, it's a ways out there. Talking about 2 million miles or so. But I do like to check these on a daily basis here just to, see what's going on here. Because if we see something super close, we can obviously jump on board here and see how close it's going to get with the orbital viewer and the path that it would take close to Earth. But I think, for now we are safe and sound and really no impacts here to this planet that we're aware of for now. Have a good one. We'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later on this afternoon. Like I say, I have a feeling I'm going to be coming back here on the live stream to update you guys on a strong X flare. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that sunspot. Stay safe, folks. We'll catch you guys back here a little bit later.